Caron, take it away.
Thank you, Erin. Hi, everybody. Thank you for today on Thursday. Thank you to the Cambridge Art Association. A great plug for a wonderful local community-based organization that does really fabulous programs, exhibitions in Cambridge, and serves the entire Boston area community. So thank you, Erin, and for the Cambridge Art Association. So welcome to my studio. I'm in my home. I live in Newton. We moved to Boston, to the Boston area years ago. Whoops, if everybody can mute, then it would be great. Then I won't hear the background noise. So we moved to Boston about 8 years ago. After a long time in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was born in South Africa, and at the age of 8, my parents moved to Israel. And we've been living in the US for the last 20 years. I only mention this because it comes to play in my artwork. It's a pretty prominent theme. I think that being born in South Africa made me very sensitive to race relations. Growing up in Israel made me very sensitive to the plight of the Palestinians and of course my very strong Jewish identity and heritage. And living in the US, I've spent the majority of my career in the nonprofit world, and that has made me very sensitive to inequality and injustices in our society. And all of those issues really play a dominant role in my art. I have not been an artist my entire life. In fact, I would say I'm pretty much self-taught. I have had a couple of incredible teachers who have helped me and pushed me along the way, but art education. I started out as a painter and found that the flat surfaces were very inhibiting me, and I preferred to go off the flat surface and incorporate a lot of mixed media, which is what I do today. I pulled out a few pieces that are significant to me. One piece is older and the rest are really new. Some of them are very much in response to what's going on right now in our I think the pandemic for me has brought to light the issues that are so for me, whether it be homelessness, racial injustices, gender inequality, of course, poverty, the arts. What do we do in a time of pandemic when galleries and museums are closed and we have nowhere to exhibit? And how do we as artists respond to the issues that we're facing right now? So one of my responses has been to start this quilt, which is made up of fabrics, tiny, tiny swatches of fabrics. I'm going to show it to you right now. So I hope I don't make everybody seasick. But as I move along, you're getting a glimpse of my studio, which is a super messy place. So this is a new piece that I'm working on right now. It is tiny swatches of fabric that I have been stitching together since the beginning of the pandemic. And what has become very evident to me is that the entire universe, the whole world now shares this invisible enemy. And at the end of the day, we're all pretty much in this together, no matter where we live, what faith we subscribe to, and that we're just one shared humanity. And so this quilt is growing day by day as I begin asking people who have been significant in my life to send me swatches of fabric so that I can include them in my story. And what was very interesting to me as I saw the Sunday Times, the New York Times, the front page, which I thought brought home the humanity down to the singular grain pandemic by, if you haven't seen it, Google it for sure. It's worth looking at. So the Sunday Times really highlighted 1,000 of the 100,000 deaths that have occurred in the US since the beginning of the pandemic. And so when I put them side by side, both the New York Times on this golden trellis, which I've been working on and which will become another piece, it became very obvious to me that this, in essence, was the story that I was trying, and I am trying to tell through this piece. Another piece that I have been working on lately is, will be called, not called quite yet, The Binding of Isaac, COVID 2020. And once again tells the story of our, this time that we live in. So the story of Isaac is that Abraham, his father, in our Jewish tradition, took him to be sacrificed to God, the story of the burning bush. And so I draw a lot of my inspiration from my Jewish tradition. The two, what could be eyes, are actually New York Times photos of people in Italy who are standing on their porches, and they go out, I guess, or they did, I don't know if they still do, go out every evening to their balconies and porches to sing together, kind of akin to the screaming or the clapping that's going on around either New York or other places around the country. But in my burning bush, there are leaves that are falling, kind of to remind me of the spring. As we were locked up, spring was still happening. And as life was canceled, you know, the trees were beginning to green and bloom. But also our sacrifice, I feel, as a society has been of low-income families, of African Americans, of Latinos, in many ways sharing a very disproportionate share in the toll of death during this epidemic. And so my leaves are not really leaves, they're really commentary on what is happening right now. And they're all fraying, as you can see. There's, you know, we are fraying. We're fraying, I feel, very exponentially as a society. And so I use my art as my one voice to be able to tell the story of what I believe and feel so strongly about. So, whoops, I'm going to try and not make you all seasick as I move around. So this piece, which is made out of paper mache balloons, is made up of newspaper clippings. All during the epidemic, I would collect them every single day. I would venture out to go get the newspapers just so that I could collect the headlines. And every single balloon tells a story of what was really happening behind the scenes in people's homes, the sexual abuse that was happening in, you know, very high numbers as it relates to being locked in quarantine. And then, of course, the huge death toll. And some of my balloons really talk about that. I chose to do a balloon piece particularly because what seemed to be for many families, a very interesting time, because people are locked together. I know in my family we're playing board games and eating family dinners together, and of course watching a lot of movies, which is kind of a bizarre time to, at the same time, while the world in many ways is kind of falling apart, there was a sense for some, for many even, of a good time, of almost, people were telling me that they're having great family time, watching a ton of movies. Netflix is doing so well, and so there's this oxymoron which is happening while the world is falling apart. So the last piece I pulled out, which I will take you to, is sitting in my garage right now, which comes from a show that I had in October, this past October, at Beacon Gallery in Boston. Another plug for a fantastic gallery and gallery owner, Christine O'Donnell. And it is made of chicken wire, so the bed itself is made of chicken wire and held together by thousands of safety pins and zip ties. And as I was making, the solo show was called Up to Places and really told the story of my immigration, but broadened really to talk about immigration issues around the country. The fence was being built at that time, still is. And the comforter, which is made out of newspapers, both Israeli in Hebrew and the New York Times, the clippings are 7 by 7. Each one of them is a 7 by 7 inch, which is very significant number in the Jewish tradition, but really clipped for the content, issues about children, immigration, homelessness, poverty, art, of course, women issues, gender-related inequalities, and of course, race relations. The spine of the comforter is crocheted by my aunt, and really as the story of my family being my spine and my center. It's called My Uncomfort Zone. It both turned into a political as well as very personal story. So those are the few pieces that I pulled out for today. And I am thrilled and happy to take questions, or I don't know, Erin, how you want to run the Q&A session, but happy to take them.
Great. So that was fantastic. So if you have a question and you are an attendee, since you are all on mute, you can either use the hand raise function in Zoom, which does not involve raising your hand like I did, but there's a little button you can click. You can also type, I have a question, into the chat box and ask away while I continue to admit people. Let's see. How long, you're relatively new to making art, Caron. When did you start on this road of artistic creation?
So we moved to Boston a little over 8 years ago. And I faced this incredible, I would say, identity crisis. I'd come from a very long professional career in the nonprofit world. I had worked in a variety of different nonprofits, primarily in the Jewish community, but then also in the homeless community in the Bay Area. And we moved here for my husband's position. He assumed a position here at one of the hospitals in Boston. And after I got my kids settled in their respective schools, found that I was, looking to figure out what my next step would be in my life. And after I came home from a trip to visit my family in Israel, I decided to take an art class, and pretty much haven't looked back. It's been an evolution for me. It started very much as a hobby and then became a true passion. And also I found my calling, I found my voice. And my voice is, I would say, the nexus between issues of social justice, my Jewish identity, and I draw a lot from Jewish texts and the Jewish tradition, and my call for activism. So people ask me what I'm going to do the day after the elections, and I am going to paint one giant, great, fabulous picture. That's what I'm going to do.
Awesome. All right, so we do have some questions that started coming in. I'm first going to unmute Caron Berman Mulligan. Go ahead.
Hey, I am interested in your works on paper, in particular the paintings. Do you prime the surface of the paintings, and what medium are you using? Is it acrylics, oil, a combination? What do you like to use?
So I only use acrylics, and I do not prime the surface. Sometimes I'll use a gesso, but I often don't even prime the surfaces. The piece that you saw that you were looking at, this one is, I think you can see it now. Is that right?
No, we see.
Oh, there. Can you see it now?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It is on canvas. So there's a combination of mixed materials. It's both canvas, acrylic, charcoal, paper, newspaper, and the brown that you can see here, the brown are brown bags that, I don't know how it is in the rest of the country, but here at Whole Foods or at many stores, you actually cannot get plastic at the moment. So I've been taking the brown bags and using them to make my, these leaves.
Sure.
And then they're all stitched.
Yeah, that's really neat. The paintings that you showed us before you showed us this one are smaller, but there were several of them together on a wall.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about these.
I think over even further, but it was, I think before you showed us the quilt, actually.
Oh.
Well, anyway, I was wondering what kind of paper you like to paint on.
Usually I use a lot of newspapers, and the reason I use a lot of newspapers is because I think that newspapers tell us a story. There's a narrative there that I can draw from. These are, what you're looking at are some paintings of mine that are in a pile here. I can, so I draw a lot from the newspapers. I feel that they offer an opportunity for me to speak without it being my voice, but rather more of a an outside voice, a communal voice, someone else's voice, but that I adapt to tell my story. And I find that to be really, really, that's primarily the newspaper that the paper that I use. Does that answer your question?
Well, that may you get a little bit of a smearing effect when you put paint over the newsprint. Yeah.
I use a lot. I use my hands a lot. I use a lot of smush, for lack of a better term. And I hold nothing near and dear, simply because I'm not wedded to any one piece until I am wedded to it. There are no mistakes. So it should tell you that one of the reasons that some of my work, the gestures are so bold and I'm so unafraid is I am a cancer survivor, and I lost my hair at the young age of 17, and I feel that if I could fix that, then I can fix anything. Like, it's just not of much value until, it's fixable. It will grow back. It will come up. I can put it back together somehow. So it's like this deep. I'm really, really unafraid. So I smush a lot.
Yeah, your work is pretty bold.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I feel
particularly.
very, sorry, I feel very strongly that, you know, I have a voice. I have one voice. I have an opportunity to say something that I feel very passionate about, and so I'm going to say it. Yeah.
Great. So I think we have another question from Rebecca Tuck. So I'm going to unmute you, Rebecca.
Hey, Rebecca.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm loving all your new work, and it's very cohesive, and I most likely from the situation that we're all in, obviously, and well, I'm not saying obviously, but what, you know, and I'm wondering if you are making all this work for an upcoming show or for a gallery that we could see in the future, that because I just want to come and look close eventually when we can.
So first of all, come and look eventually when we can. But yes, so I'm going to be having another solo show in April of 2021. It's going to be at the Beacon Gallery, the fabulous Beacon Gallery in Boston. And the show actually is going to be called Imago Dei, ? Which is Latin for ? In the image of God. Are we living in the image of God? And I feel that we have strayed so far away from what that means on a human level. And so I'm going to be weaving in and out Hebrew, English, Latin, issues of racial justice, of inequality, of there are going to be representations of different people who have impacted my life significantly in this arena. And I'm going to give voice to them. And so I think that there is a common thread that emerges through my work. And I think a lot of it will be on display in this show. Yeah. Yeah. I'm loving that house of yours, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. It looks like, I don't know if this is a question, but I'm going to unmute you, Shelly Ann Peleg, if you can hear me. Shelly, are you there?
Oh, I don't know if she's there. She's in Israel.
Okay. Well, she wanted to know if there was any chance of you bringing an exhibit to Israel.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. And we want to know when the exhibition's coming to Israel.
As soon as we can find a gallery there. It will. It will. Yeah. Yeah, I would very much like to take my work on the road, because I think that there's a universal message that does speak to issues across the border, across societies. Yeah.
All right. It looks like we have a question from Loretta, and I'm going to say, how awesome that we have someone from Israel visiting your studio in Newton virtually. That is so cool. So I'm going to unmute you, Loretta.
Hi. So I have a reflection on the color, that blue color of the spine that your elderly relative created for your bed piece.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of something, and I want to check it out with you if you think this is appropriate.
Sure.
And not Jewish, but I value the culture, religion. And I remember reading something about the color blue is used in like a tassel people wear sometimes. And the idea is you might go around a corner someday and lose sight of who you are in context. And the blue is to remind you of God because of the color's association with the sky. I don't know if I said that very well. Maybe you can correct me.
So that's a really interesting, I know that, yes, the color blue is used very prominently in the Jewish tradition. I think you can see, you can see the blue that you were referring to. Is that right? Am I to it? Yeah. So in the Jewish tradition, when we pray in the synagogue, we wear a prayer shawl, which is traditionally has blue stripes in it. And the blue originated from it was a pigment that people would use to dye fabric with, but as well as use as a as makeup. And I'm not exactly sure what the blue is representative for, but that's a good question. Thank you for giving me homework. I will get back to you on that one.
Yes.
Unless there's somebody on the Zoom who knows the answer. I don't know what the origin of the blue, specifically the blue is.
Maybe talk to your relative. Maybe she has a thought on that.
She might.
Made it.
She might. She might. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we do have a couple more minutes. Does anyone have any additional questions for Caron? And while you're thinking about that, I'm going to share my screen again, so that if you do want to learn more about Caron's work or keep in touch with when she might be having her next exhibit, or when she's having her next exhibit at Beacon Gallery, you can find her online at carontabb.com or on Instagram at Caron Tabb. So go ahead and give her a follow. Are you posting a lot of your process stuff on Instagram right now, Caron?
I often do, and I also just a quick about the blue. So, by the way, the blue is also used heavily in the Middle East, in different Arab societies, and it is against the evil eye. So I have to check. It's to keep the evil eye out of your house. I want to check to see if that's the reason that we use the blue, but I'll get back to you, Loretta. Yes.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I do post a lot on Instagram as well as with Facebook, on Facebook, and feel free to follow me.
Yeah, follow, like. And I'm just going to share one more thing. So we have one more virtual studio visit before we take a little break until July. Our last one of the season is going to be next Thursday, June 4th. By then we will have done, I think, 14 virtual studio visits since the beginning of April, which has been so fun. In most cases, we've been welcomed into home studios that artists aren't typically opening up for open studios events. So it's been really amazing. It's been really fun for me as well. We are preparing plans to reopen at a very reduced capacity in our real IRL space, but we'll still be here in the virtual space as well. So if you like what you've seen today and want to help us continue doing it, you can text YAY, CAA, to 321 to make a donation today. And the text to donate is something new that we're doing as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just double check the chat. Got a lot of really great comments, Caron, so I will share the chat with you at the end. Yeah, there's several comments also about the blue color and its usage. So I think we all learned something about that today. Oh, and I think we have one more question from Judith Prager before we go. So go ahead, Judith.
Hi.
Hi.
Am I on? I love all the materials and the roughness of the materials. And I was just, your studio is so intriguing as you're sweeping through it. So I was just wondering if you would want to show us some other parts of the studio and some of your, looks like collections of materials.
Yeah, oh boy, do I have collections. So yes, I am an avid junk collector. And in my travels, I collect. So this is just kind of where I, store all my mediums and paints and gels. And, yes. But I think the most fun part of the studio is actually in my garage, where I have all my junk collections. So you can see I have I do go dumpster diving when I go places, and I have stored stuff by color, you know, I frequent building sites and I pull out rust, and I have just so much stuff. If you ever need anything, let me know. I probably have it. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. I wish I could show this to my husband when he complains about my studio.
Give me a call. You can come for a visit.
I'd like to. Thank you.
Sure.
I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
Your work is great also. It's very wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, so we're at 102. I think it's amazing. I think all artists are junk collectors on some level.
In one shape or form.
In
That
one
is
shape
true.
or another. And if you're lucky, other people will bring you their junk so that.
I don't know. I don't know that my husband would appreciate that, but yeah.
It's been known to happen when people find out, when word gets out, Caron, people start to bring you junk and leave it without asking sometimes. So this has been really wonderful. I want to thank you for
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Us into your studio. I'm going to unmute everybody for the last moment that we're on together, just to say thank you and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is great.
Thank you.
Erin, you're doing such a good job getting everybody. Everybody's been so wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for
Fearless.
your help.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
And thanks to CAA for making this possible.
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, someone is at the pyramids of Egypt there.
Yes.
Wow.
I love it. It's wild.
Thank you.
Background, there's a painting by Caron on the wall behind us between David.
Here's Judith.
Yeah.
Oh.
Caron painting, a gift when she just came for one weekend and put it all together because she didn't like what we had up there.
That's a wonderful gift.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody. I'm going to end the meeting. Have a great afternoon or evening, wherever you are.
You too, Erin.
Bye.
Bye.